Well, thanks for the very kind words and greetings. Everybody says from their great state, and I will tell you greetings from the great state of Montana. I've always said the best decision I ever made in my life is when I picked my great-great-grandmother. She homesteaded in northern Montana, and I did not realize what I had growing up, but I'm assuming there are many who love the outdoors, who love to fish and to hunt. And I grew up in a town called Bozeman, Montana. We're just about an hour from Yellowstone National Park. But if you've ever seen the movie A River Runs Through It, talking about this, it was actually a Presbyterian minister and his two boys. And one of those boys in the movie was Brad Pitt. That was filmed on a river I grew up fishing about 20 minutes from my house. And I've always said that I grew up fly fishing in Montana before Brad Pitt ruined it for the rest of us. But I want to thank you for what you do. I will tell you just a quick little story. I did spend some time working for a company called Procter & Gamble. I was one of these Montana kids, went to kindergarten through college in Bozeman. And when I graduated, it was tough to find a good paying job to stay in Montana. So I had to leave the state and work for Procter & Gamble. For a few years, they sent us over to work in China, not to send jobs over there, but to take an American company and compete against Chinese companies and to win with superior made-in-America ideas and products. But what hit me, and I can tell you why I have a different appreciation for what it means to dial 911 than I did when I went to China, is we showed up there, my sweet wife, at that time we had 2 small children, and this was back in the 90s. And you realize when you're there, you think, well, what happens if there's a fire? What happens if there's an automobile accident? What happens if you need help? Because in America, in the United States, we pick up our mobile device and we hit 3 digits. And we get professional, reliable, outstanding service, usually within minutes. And the difference, of course, can mean the difference between life and death. And for several years, we lived in a place where you could not do that. We take this for granted in our country. As Americans, what truly a privilege it is that you know that when you hit those 3 digits, somebody's going to show up there, take control of a difficult situation, and to save lives. And that perspective of mine changed. It changed. And when I came back, I've told folks that. To never take for granted. There are people waiting, they're trained, they're competent, they understand how to handle a crisis situation, difficult situation, will put their lives on the line there to protect and perhaps even save your own life. So I want to thank you for what you do every day here in protecting and serving us. Last week, we had an energy conference in Montana. We were standing with several different union groups in panels. As I can tell you, a lot of our jobs are under attack right now. With the Boilermakers Union, Rail Union, the trade unions, pipe fitters, as we're fighting for these good energy jobs back home in Montana that pay oftentimes twice and even 3 times our state average. Because our wages in Montana, we're proud of a lot of things in Montana. We're proud of our fly fishing, we're proud of our hunting and the incredible outdoor experiences we have. But you know, you got to have a job that pays a good wage. Otherwise, the only folks who will be there are the ones who are building what we call them the starter castles in Montana, and the working person has to leave the state to get a good job. As a United States Senator, people refer to me as a public servant. Well, that's a kind comment, but I can tell you something. The true public servants are sitting here in this room this morning. You wake up every morning, you go out the door, not knowing what the day is going to present. And so I stand here indebted for the work you do in our communities across our nation. I also want to thank the Montana State Council of Professional Firefighters president, he's from my hometown, Joel Fassbinder, for all the work he does on behalf of Montanans. It's great to have another Bozemanite there to serve with in our community and in our country. I also get to give a shout out, given that I'm the Montana guy, I want to recognize my Montanans who are part of this event. Jason Baker from Great Falls. My mom saw her first rodeo in Great Falls when she was 4 years old, as well as David Van Son from Great Falls. Derek Harvey from Butte. Butte is an amazing community. It's about 90 miles from where I grew up. It's great heritage on behalf of creating jobs in Montana. It was the richest hill on earth, Butte, Montana, the stories of the Copper Kings, the Copper Bear, and so forth. And really the birth, in many ways, of the union movement was in Butte, Montana. Scott Damaris from Anaconda. We have George Richards here from Billings. And we've got some incredible heroes also from Montana. Folks like Cameron McCamley, the Billings firefighter. Billings is where my mom and dad grew up. In fact, they met. My grandma and grandpa lived there and died there well in their mid-90s. But he was the American Legion Firefighter of the Year for 2015 on 3 separate levels, both local, state, and regional. And I'm very, very proud to have these men and women protecting my home state. I was also proud last year to support the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act. I know that was a great fight, and let me tell you something. If you don't think your visits to D.C. make a difference, that bill alone would tell you it's worth the time and effort what you do here in Washington. I remember when I came out of my office, and I was a supporter of the Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act, and thanks really those Bozeman and Montana firefighters with Fassbinder and the gang, they came and we chatted about it, and it was helpful to me to see this was the right thing to do. But I remember I was walking out my office one morning, and I ran into this guy, and I didn't quite recognize him. He kind of had a little more hair on his face than he normally does to see him on TV, and you saw John Stewart walking around, and he was very much there looking like he doesn't on TV with looking in his suit and tie. He was there with some of our best from New York as they were walking literally the hallways of the United States Senate, going, it's like hand-to-hand, door-to-door combat, going from office to office across the Senate office building. And I told John Stewart and those firefighters, I stand with you with the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act. And it's one thing to stand for an act, it's another thing to see it actually get passed. So congratulations on that legislative victory. And let me tell you, legislative victories on any front are far and few between. To try to actually get something done, remember the days of Schoolhouse Rock, I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill, from the House to the Senate to the President, congratulations on getting that done. So often in this town, activity gets rewarded versus results, and congratulations on getting a result. Let me close by telling you a quick story that happened last week in Montana, that same energy conference I was telling you about. So it was about 11:30 p.m. in Billings, Montana on Wednesday night of last week. And there had been a gentleman who got overserved in the bar there in Billings, and he wasn't real happy, and he got asked to leave. Now, we don't know for sure why the fire alarm also went off at 11:30 p.m. We just know there was a disgruntled person who walked out at the same time the fire alarm goes off. Now, I know you have many, many occurrences where somebody in a hotel, somebody in a college dorm pulls the fire alarm, and God bless you all. You jump in, headed for, assuming there's going to be a major fire, ready to fight it, and it was a false alarm. But as the firefighters are showing up, this rather overserved individual tried to grab the cell phone from my chief of staff, who was standing out there because everybody had to leave the hotel. And it got to be a little bit of a, let's just call it a Montana scrum. And our Attorney General of Montana, Tim Fox, who is the youngest of 5 brothers, grew up in Hardin, Montana. He was a hurdler in college. You know, Tim's now in his upper 50s, but he still knows how to take a guy to the ground. And so as this rather overserved gentleman is kind of taking on my chief of staff here with a cell phone, let me just say my chief of staff, with all due respect to my chief, he didn't play linebacker in high school football. And Tim grabs the guy, Attorney General, as the gentleman tries to cold cock Tim, takes him to the ground with a half Nelson and holds him to the ground. And as the firefighters are showing up, and now the police officers show up, the officer came up and said, "And who are you?" And he's holding this guy on the ground and says, "I'm Attorney General Tim Fox." Now think about that. The #1 law enforcement officer of the state of Montana. He's got the guy in a half Nelson there to the ground. And it all worked out just fine. And in fact, to the credit of both parties involved, after the gentleman had a chance to sober up, they actually had a conversation the next day and reconciled. Nobody pressed charges. But that's a little bit of the Montana way there. Never afraid to step up and step in and take action when it's needed. So please know, here in Washington, I stand with you and the 300,000 firefighters nationwide. You have a friend and ally. Thank you for what you do, and I look forward to continuing to support your efforts and working with all of you to keep making our communities safer. Thanks so much, and God bless.